Good morning. God bless you for being here. What an honor it is to be here in the state capital of North Carolina, the 50th state in a journey that has taken many, many months. And I want to thank you, Senator and Congressman, for the support of an amazing accomplishment. To be able to have this symbol that recognizes all those that gave their lives for our country. Something that has been lacking, I believe, since our foundation. But I'm going to give you a little bit of history as to who I am and why I'm here. And Kathy has read some of that. Previous stole a little bit of my thunder. But on December 30th of 2005, I did get that knock on the door. And two uniformed soldiers with 5 very simple words: "We regret to inform you." And those words, I will tell you, are the most devastating that a family can hear. And what do you do with that? How do you move on? You know, how does your life change? I will tell you that, honestly, I didn't want to live after that day. But God took me on a different path. He gave me the assurance very quickly that my son was in that better place, that he was with him, and that eternity was a wonderful place. And although I had to bear the sorrow of him being gone, of not hearing his voice again, of him not ever walking through that door, I knew that there were other missions ahead that needed to be fought. And what I did was something very similar to, I'm sure, what all of the families have done. I began a search of memories. I began to look for anything I could that would give me one more day of life with my son. I looked through boxes and closets. I searched for photographs. I searched for letters. I searched for emails. Any scrap of paper with his handwriting on it. Anything I could that would give me one more day of memory. And you know, that process comes to an end because there's only so many drawers you can open. And my son was married and he had 2 children. And he had gone to college. And he had several jobs before the Army. And I realized that he had a life outside of us. You know, as parents, we raise our kids up to be self-sufficient. We want them to go out and make a difference in society. And so I went out to his friends because I wanted to know if they had any stories, if they have any pictures, if they have anything that they could tell me that would give me that one more day of life. And that process ended. And I knew he served in the United States Army. And I knew that he trained and he was deployed with fellow soldiers. And I wanted to know, did they have any stories? Could they tell me anything about him at all? I wanted to know that they were proud of him. I wanted to know that he did his job well. I wanted to know what happened that day. I wanted to know what he had for breakfast. Everything I could that would give me one more day of life. And then I realized something very important. He died for the United States of America. He served selflessly and put his life on the line for all of us. And I wanted to know how this nation remembered. I wanted to know what this nation did. How did they rally? What did they look to? What did they say? Anything. Because I wanted them to be as proud of him as I was. And so I began that search. But my search first took me to the funerals and memorials of those that died after my son. I began to visit family members. I began to grieve with them. And as I met those families from Iraq and Afghanistan, I began to meet families from Grenada, from the First Gulf War, from Vietnam, from Korea, from World War II. Sisters, widows, mothers, children. And the two things that I heard over and over from these families were, please don't let this have been in vain. And please don't let them be forgotten. Those were the only two things that each family cried out for. And why? Why, as a nation, a free nation, would anyone ever think that a sacrifice was in vain? We are the greatest nation on earth. We are the helping nation. We are there when anyone, anywhere in this world needs help. But I looked at Vietnam, and even in Korea, and so many came back unappreciated, hiding, spat upon, being blamed for doing their jobs. And I thought, of course, people would feel unappreciated. Of course, people would think that that sacrifice would have been in vain. But I thought, as long as the American flag flies freely in this country above free soil, then no sacrifice will ever have been in vain. Regardless of the label that you put on it, regardless of the political spin you give it, regardless of the method of death, whether it be in combat, in training, as a result of serving, no sacrifice will ever have been in vain. But then I came to the remembrance part. That one was a little bit more difficult for me. Because as I spoke to widows and mothers who have been without their loved ones for 30, 40, 50 years, having to tell me that they continue to have to remind people that they lost their son, they lost their husband, they lost their brother, because people want them to get over it. That was the travesty to me. And as I looked around, I realized why. Because as a nation, we gave ourselves a day to remember. We gave ourselves Memorial Day, which is a wonderful thing. But you know, Memorial Day has become a day off, an extra day of vacation. There are entire movements in this country to make people stop and think about sacrifice for 1 minute on Memorial Day. That's all they want. Just stop for 1 minute. This country should stop on Memorial Day. And we should do nothing but give thanks for those that have served and sacrificed their lives so that we could live under the freedoms that we have every day. Every single day because of those lives. And I thought, I never forget. Kathy never forgets. Miss Jones never forgets. What could we do to be sure that this country, at least, has a tangible reminder of that sacrifice? And as I looked around, I noticed flags everywhere. One in particular, the POW flag. And I thought what an honorable thing that was. That this nation adopted a symbol, a military symbol, that recognized that those missing or those captured need to be remembered. And what came to me was that light bulb moment where I thought, the fallen need a flag. Those that sacrificed for this country from the beginning of our country's history have never had a public symbol that reminded us of sacrifice and gave us an opportunity to say thank you. And so, on May 26th, 2008, The Honor and Remember flag was unveiled publicly to the nation to be that symbol of sacrifice, to be that recognition of all military lives lost in the history of our country, from the beginning to the present and beyond. A way to publicly say, when there's no words, when you don't know what to say, but you know what you feel, a way to say thank you. A way to publicly acknowledge in gratitude those that have given so much for all of us. And so, with the help of Congressman Jones and many others, there is a bill in Congress to officially recognize this as a national symbol of remembrance. We hope in the next 6 to 8 months this will become a reality. About 10 months ago, I started to be contacted by various states across the country. And they said, we don't want to wait for Congress. We want to fly this in our state for our fall. We want to do it now. What can we do? I can take this bill from Congress and mirror it in your state and fly it for those that have given their lives and for their families to remember. And one by one, the states have done that. You just heard that the state of North Carolina officially on August 4th made this a state symbol of remembrance. And I've been traveling from Memorial Day on a journey across all 50 states. This is my 50th state. I've traveled 27,000 miles to get here to this state capital today. And my final stop will be Arlington Cemetery on Thursday, Veterans Day, at 2 o'clock, where we will plant over 12,000 flags on the graves in Section 60, spanning many, many wars. But it's more than just a piece of cloth. And there's one flying above this building, and please, as you go out, look up. And I'm grateful for that. But it's more than just this flying in the wind that can easily be ignored. It's about remembering individual lives, touching those lives, and saying thank you in a very special way. Because if we forget that part of our identity, then we don't know who we are or why we are here. And so as part of this ceremony, the explanation of why we're here is why we want to honor a very particular family today. And if I can say that this family represents today in this spot now, all of the North Carolina people have lost their lives around this country. As we will, in through Kathy and North Carolina, honor every family that has ever lost anyone in this country, in this state, in this very same way. And I'd like to ask that